Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Parade Lap podcast. This week we are talking about Silverstone because we have just had the British Grand Prix. It was pretty exciting. There we go, supporting the flag. It was a sprint weekend which was full on. It was pretty fun. I was there on the Saturday and the Sunday, which was very cool. Yeah, just excited to chat about it. What were your thoughts about Silverstone?
I thought it was really exciting. Sprint weekend, lots going on, drivers parade, interesting mix of people on the podiums, which I'm sure we'll get to. And I think there were quite a few plot twists in that race, which I think we'll also chat about. I thought it was great. I watched the full race this time, but I watched it delayed. So I was traveling and I got back home and it was 45 minutes into the race and I managed to ignore social media, not see what was happening and start the race a bit delayed. But I watched the whole thing and it was great.
Cool. Love it. Would you like to start off with your P3?
Yes, I would. And my P3 is something I just touched on, which is that we had the return of the Lego cars for the Drivers Parade. Obviously, our podcast is called Parade Lap. It's because you and I met at the Parade Lap at Silverstone 2 years ago. And we recently, when we were talking about Miami, were actually mentioning, did Miami even have a driver's parade?
Yeah.
And it didn't, because we were thinking, what were they going to do after the Lego cars? But they didn't have anything. We were quite sad about that. So yeah, surprise, surprise. The Lego cars arrived again, and this time it was at Silverstone. When I first saw them, I thought, how are they going to have two drivers on that? That looks very small. That's more like go-karts. But actually, it was every driver got their own car. We had Alonso winning the race. I don't know if it was as exciting, maybe because it wasn't as surprising as when we had it in Miami. But there were a few moments from there, obviously from the highlights that we saw where they got stuck in the gravel. They even had the FIA director racing with them. And I saw Carlos jumping on Lando's car and George giving Arvid a push or something when he got stuck and going along, and it just looked fun. But you were actually there, so I'm curious to know, what did you think?
Honestly, it was pretty boring. They were just really slow, obviously. I think it was overhyped. It was cool, but it wasn't as funny as Miami, because that was like, oh my god, what are they doing? And they were all having lots of fun with it, that they were all giggling. And they were all giggling this time, but Silverstone is a very, very long lap. So I think when they sat in it, just sort of thought, oh, this is going to take a long time. So that's why they were cutting all the corners, going through the gravel trap, and then that obviously didn't work, then they got stuck. And then it was just it was disappointing when they got stuck, because then I think I was quite far around the track and I was thinking, oh, well, that's maybe 8 or so drivers that I'm not going to see go past me. Eventually they did. So it was cool, because I was, I could see them pretty close and they were doing all the waving and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't as good as Miami, I don't think. But I have always wanted to see a Fernando Alonso win. So for that reason, I actually did really like it. But I think that was sort of the redeeming thing. Carlos getting a ride with Lando was funny, but I don't know, I think it was a little bit underwhelming.
So I think it was cool that it was back, and also interesting because we had commented on it on Miami. I watched I didn't watch the drivers parade when it was happening. I saw some of the highlights of it, and obviously those are just the fun things that happened. I actually watched the drivers parade before this, and I had to go back and check why this video was so long. Like, why was it going to be like half an hour or something? Obviously, there were other things, but it just took forever, for them to go. So, yeah.
It was a cool idea, but it probably wasn't the right place to do it.
Yeah, I think that might be the end of the Lego stuff now, because unless there's some other version of this that they do, but I think that might be it in terms of the wow factor.
Yeah, it was still cool.
It was cool. Obviously, I like what you said about at least seeing one Alonso win. What was your P3?
My P3 was the really surprising aspect of the race, and it was Max Verstappen crashing. That was, like you said before, a plot twist. Really unexpected. I don't really know what happened. I think he was unhappy with his brake balance and stuff during the race, so he was quite vocal on the radio. I wasn't really listening to the comms completely because I was standing near a speaker, but it wasn't quite the same as watching it on the broadcast. But so he was having a bit of a crappy race, and then I think he just lost control of the car, had a lock up and spun off. But he did it right in front of Lando's stand, which was bright yellow, and that thing was huge. It had, I don't know, 16,000 people or something. It was massive. Like walking past it was kind of daunting because it was just huge. It looked really cool, but it was huge. And Lando joked like at the start of the race that he was hoping that the stand would be so bright that it would distract other drivers. And it kind of did. Yeah, so kind of awful for Max to crash in front of that many people, but just bad for him to crash in general. So yeah, I was really disappointed that he crashed, but then because he then had a DNF, we saw some more exciting people in the points because obviously it freed up some space within the top 10. So I liked that part of it, but yeah, just disappointed for Max.
Yeah, I agree. That was so surprising because I think it was in like the 48th lap or something. So it was so close to the end. And Max was on track to be P3 at that stage.
Yeah.
Which was actually one of my predictions. I thought it was going to be Lewis and then maybe George and then Max.
Yeah.
And so I thought he would get onto the podium. So yeah, to go from the podium and into the wall basically, and then at the Lando stand. I heard him in the post-race interview. I can't remember what he referred to specifically now about the car. I don't know if it was like the wing or something. He was saying that if it's unreliable as you're coming in, it happened to him where he spun out previously at a different race.
Yeah.
And then he was saying, okay, if it happens once, but then if it happens the second time, that's just not on. And he was really upset after that. He said, he's looking forward to going home and just not thinking about Formula One, basically. So,
Fair.
Yeah, he was unhappy with that. I thought it was really great that he'd managed to get up into P3. It was also interesting this weekend because Hadjar outqualified him, I think, across all the sessions. Yeah. And, we were talking about how, earlier on in the season if Hadjar was regretting joining Red Bull, but actually he's been doing pretty well and consistently kind of being quite close to Max, which historically we haven't really seen in the second seat. Obviously it's Max is not doing that great, but still to be closing the gap is pretty good for him. But yeah, felt bad for Max. Also felt bad for Max, which kind of relates to my P2 because my P2 was the FIA's epic fail, I think, with that last lap. The last racing lap, because we had no racing in the last lap. And the reason, and it kind of gave me 2021 flashbacks. But now they decided not to go ahead and go motor racing and do this. They didn't really give the fans, I think, what they wanted in terms of fitting into that race. Yeah. And the thing that ended up having this knock-on effect was Max crashing. So Max crashed like you described. And then because of that, the virtual safety car came on and then an actual safety car. And lots of drivers ended up pitting because of this. So they all went onto the softs, basically, most of them. And it created so many things that happened because Lewis pitted, George didn't, so George stayed out. And then Lewis lost a place. Instead of being P2, he went P3. So it was because of that. But we still thought we were going to get at least one lap of racing.
Yeah.
And it said on the screen that the virtual safety car was ending for that last lap and it was supposed to come in. And then I was ready for them to go. And I was wondering what was going to happen with Lewis in the top 3 and Norris was P4 too. Like anything could have happened.
Yeah.
And they didn't. It stayed out. And the commentators and everyone was just really shocked about why we didn't get that lap when it said it was supposed to end. So yeah, I feel like it kind of robbed us of what could have happened with that last racing lap.
Yeah, it was disappointing. It was because of a signal failure, apparently. It was like a technical glitch that the safety car couldn't be called back. I think it might be because of how the pit lane is set up at Silverstone, that the entrance to the pit lane is so far back around that corner rather than being sort of accessible from the start-finish straight almost. So it might have had something to do with that. But then it was really interesting because all the drivers afterwards in the post-race interviews, they were like, well, my tyres were kind of cold at that point, so I was kind of happy that we didn't have to go again because I wouldn't have gone anywhere. So I think they were all sort of thinking the same thing, like they wanted to go racing, but they were actually really uncertain about what was going to happen because their tyres were cold at that point. Yeah, it was disappointing, but I was still happy with the result. It just wasn't quite as cool, but yeah, you got a good look at them as they went past at the end because they were going slow. And I found out that
yeah.
when they're under safety car, that Charles said in an interview that he was going 100 or 120 kilometers per hour. And I've always wanted to know, like, when they've slowed down, how fast they're actually going. That's still, like, more than the speed limit of a normal car. And that's them going slow. So I found that really interesting. Yeah.
What was your P2?
My P2 has become a bit of a trend this season, and it was that Liam was in the points again because he got P6. So really just a shout out to say, yay, he's doing really, really well. He's having a good season. VCarb are having a good season. Lindblad finished P7 behind him, so VCarb and their socials were pretty funny. Yeah, just pleased for him. He had a really good race. He qualified well. He's just looking really solid, so I'm happy that he's thriving in the VCarb. It is interesting being there in the weekend because I watched the F2 and F3 races, and the big rumour is that, I'm not actually sure how to say his name, I think it's Nikolaev Tsolov, something like that, a Bulgarian young guy in F2. He's one of the Red Bull drivers, and he was very good. He won both of the races, which doesn't happen in F2 because one of them's a reverse grid. And he did a pass and overtake on Kush, one of the Alpine Academy F2 drivers, and this guy looked just like Max Verstappen. So I think I may have watched the overtake that has promoted him to F1 because it was very good. So I don't actually know what that will mean for the Red Bull lineup next season and what that will mean for Liam and Arvid, because Arvid's very good, but Liam is having a really solid season, so I'm intrigued to know what happens. But yeah, I wish I knew how to say his name properly. Solov, I think. I think he might be the next one to join the grid because he was doing very well. Yeah, so that was interesting.
Well, there's rumors that Max is going to be leaving Red Bull, so that might just be the seat that opens up and changes all the
Well, Will
dynamics.
Buxton started a thing by tweeting that there was big news coming, and he copy and pasted the tweet that he did before Lewis Hamilton moved to Ferrari, which is obviously world news. So he said the same thing. So everyone's waiting for an F1 announcement, but I'm pretty sure it's actually an IndyCar announcement because a similar thing happened, and Scott Dixon, who's a New Zealand driver, he's a 6-time IndyCar champion, so he is kind of like the Lewis Hamilton of IndyCar. He has just signed with Arrow McLaren after being with Chip Ganassi Racing for maybe like 17 years or something. He's been in it a really, really long time. So I think that's the big news and it is big news. I think that's what that tweet was referring to, but F1 fans thought that Will Buxton was still talking about F1.
Yeah, you're right, because I didn't know any of that, but I obviously follow an F1 troll meme account.
Yeah.
And that's where I got a jump scare when I opened up my Instagram, because he did a post that had Max and McLaren moving to McLaren in 2027. But it was just off the back of Will Buxton's tweet or whatever he did. It was the series where it was actually about IndyCar and it wasn't about F1. And the next, I think, picture that they had was like block or unfollow Will Buxton, because that was so dramatic, in terms of tweeting, but it actually wasn't about Formula One.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's still big news, but I think F1 fans just interpreted it wrong. But I'm very excited for him because that means it's a New Zealand driver driving for McLaren, which is obviously a New Zealand name. That doesn't happen unless Liam went to McLaren eventually in F1.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge deal for New Zealand
Very
motorsport.
cool.
It's really cool, so exciting.
But yeah, very exciting. But yeah, also, in my other sort of notable stuff, I highlighted VCarb doing well again. They're consistently getting almost into the top 10. I think Liam more than Arvid, but Arvid also kind of like,
very close behind
getting
him.
points. Exactly. So they're usually, 9 and 10, or, they're going to get those points basically for the top of the midfield. And this time, they got 6-7. Yeah, I saw all the memes of that.
And if any team was going to do that, it was good that it was them.
Yeah.
And then the date was the 6th of July, so it was 6-7 as the
Extra
date.
6-7.
The day after the race. So I think that was kind of just fate, because of course that would be a VCarb thing to jump on.
Yeah. And then Liam doing well. I think he's 9th in the driver's standing, right? So he's
10.
He's a few
he's
within the
points
top
behind.
10. And then Arvid, I just felt really happy for him because it was his first British Grand Prix. He's a British driver. This was his dream. They had quite a big kind of thing with his helmet
I
and
loved his helmet. It was so cool.
Exactly. It was
really, really cool.
was
Like
so
a really
cool.
special one.
I think he's doing a pretty good job, or his team is, at sort of crafting his narrative and the sort of storytelling
His socials
aspect
are
about
cool.
who he is as a person. So
Yeah.
almost like this personal branding story, but I think they are kind of doing it in a way that still feels authentic, which is kind of a difficult balance to strike with someone. So I think in the things that he's doing, it feels like he's leaning into that quite strongly, and especially for
Yeah.
such a young driver, I think he's starting to show that, which is interesting. We've spoken about it before. Formula One is a whole thing with marketing, branding, all of these different things that have to come together. So I just think that's maybe like one to watch in terms of how that progresses as he stays in Formula One.
Yeah, I agree. I think his socials are really cool. I think he is supported by the same team that does Lando's stuff. I think it's the same agency because I noticed them popping up under some of his Instagram posts, and his things are really cool, so it sort of makes sense that they would be doing it. So that's pretty cool because Lando's obviously had quite the brand image, the storyline building throughout his career, and then like you see it as the Lando stand, like it's just evolved. So it's kind of cool thinking that Arvid might have the same sort of path to follow. So yeah.
So okay, that was your P2, which I
Yes.
liked. Also was on my radar. But then maybe we've got exactly the same P1s.
I presume we will.
I mean, how could we not? And it was Charles is back on top. Yes,
Woo!
he's number one. Yay! Congratulations, Charles. And I love the saying like that he had, which was tough times never last, only tough people last. I just love all of that. But we'll talk about it. But exactly. But yeah, I was just honestly so happy for him. I think in your Silverstone predictions you said not a Kimi win, and we were both kind of hoping it would maybe be British drivers, or in my case I was like, go Lewis. But honestly, I'm so happy with that result. Like maybe even happier than if it was, I don't know, Lando or George winning. Like a British, I'd rather actually have Charles win. And he had such a good start. First of all, he qualified well, so he put himself on the front row.
Yep.
He had a great start overtaking Kimi. Actually, Lewis and Charles overtook Kimi, so Kimi just had quite a bad start there. And then he held on to the lead. That was the surprising thing for me. Obviously, I thought he would, they're going to get ahead, but I thought Kimi was going to fight back quite aggressively. I think Charles was helped a bit in the beginning stages by Lewis, because Lewis fell back, but then he allowed the gap, with Kimi and basically him to move. I think it was up to like 4 seconds or something, and then that helped because he was dropping back. Because they were commenting about whether Lewis and Charles would work as a team and maybe keep Lewis quite close, but actually him dropping back I think helped Charles in that beginning stages. But then there was a point where obviously he wasn't going to stay in the lead because Kimi was going to be on fresher tires, had pitted later, and was potentially going to catch up with him towards the later laps and take BP1. And Charles came on the radio and he said, this is going to be tough. Like, I think he was thinking about what could they do here to hold on to this. And in my head, Sophie, as soon as he said that on the radio, I thought, oh, but something could happen to Kimi. And then a few moments later...
You jinxed him.
Because I felt for him. I really felt for him. But what can happen? I really actually want him to win now. I don't want Kimi to just overtake him and take this from him. So, yeah, I think something happened to Kimi's car, and Kimi got car trouble. And I think this was lap 42 or whatever, where suddenly he came on the radio and said something was wrong with the car. And he went into the pits and all of that. Charles stayed out in front and got the win. And I love the radio message where they brought up this meme reference about tough times never last, only tough people do, on the radio. But then also Charles posted it on Instagram with right at the end. He did this.
It was really full circle.
Random. Yeah. So happy for him. And the biggest thing about that is he had not had a win since 2024. Like Austin 2024.
Oh, wow, yeah, true.
So I saw a thing, it said it'd been like 620 something days or whatever since he last had a win. And I can't believe that he had no wins last season, obviously none this. And the last one was back then in 2024. So happy for him.
That was also my P1, that it was a Charles win. Yeah, I've got a few points about it. So I in the last episode said I wanted a British winner because I wanted to see what the crowd would kind of do. And if a British person wasn't going to win, I'm really glad it was Charles because he was probably the only other one that would have been a really cool win out of the top contenders. So I loved it. And it was nice that Lewis was on the podium with him, but it was also really interesting to watch Lewis watch Charles be first and just how the media reacted to Lewis and Charles with Charles being on the top step. I found very interesting. But the cool thing is that he got the 205th win for Ferrari. So Lewis obviously won in Barcelona, which would have been their 200. But I really like that Charles was the one to tip it over into the record. So that's exciting. And just as you were speaking then, thinking about Charles' last win, for so long it was a meme that Carlos Sainz was the most recent Ferrari winner because obviously they had a bad season last season and Carlos had won in Australia. Was that the last one he did? Anyway, he was the most recent one, and then all of a sudden Lewis won after quite a bit of time, and then straight away Charles wins. So it's like, no, I'm the most recent one. Like if the car can win, I will win. So I really liked that. That was just pretty cool, exciting. He was very happy. It was nice hearing the Monaco national anthem. It's quite a cool one. And I am also quite surprised because I thought Ferrari was going to muck it up with their strategy during the VSCs, because I think Charles asked if they were boxing and they were like, no, we're staying out. So that was sort of thinking, uh-oh, like you had it and now you're going to lose it. And yeah, so I think it was maybe a bit of a close call. But yeah, just really happy. It was a very good finish to the weekend.
Yeah. I'm going to say cheers to Charles because actually I was on my way home and I stopped off at the shop and got a Heineken Zero and I actually realized that it is a Silverstone special edition one.
Whoa.
And I thought, that's great. I'm going to have to show it while we're doing this episode. But yeah, Heineken Zero, if you're listening to that, feel free to sponsor us because genuinely do actually drink your product. So
nice.
Yeah, cheers to Charles. And I thought that I didn't notice so much. I know that Lewis didn't look happy, right? So I think even on, he wasn't really happy with himself. Maybe with
Neither
his performance.
did George. The two of them were looking up at Charles.
Yeah, but George did nothing that race. So I feel like George didn't. It's one of those classic George Russell memes where he almost does nothing and gets P2. I feel like he just landed there, and he's probably like, what did I do to get there? Because he had a lot of luck on his side. A little bit of unluckiness because he had a puncture, but then there was a lot of luck that meant Kimi problems, Max problems. He stayed out with that safety car, didn't change with softs and moved up once, a spot against Lewis. So yeah, I feel like he didn't have such a great race, but he managed to still get P2. Whereas, I think Lewis maybe looked at that and thought probably he could have been P1, but he ended up P3. He made a few silly mistakes, like he got a 5-second penalty because and that's so unlike him to make a rookie kind of mistake like that, and that already
right in front of his grandstand as well.
And so that I think, and he was pretty down, like he was upset about that in the post-race interviews. And then there was still a question mark over him about whether he made a mistake on the yellows, I think maybe, and didn't lift or something like that. So there was potential for him to get a 5-second penalty again, and that was post-race. And he actually thought that he was going to get it. So again, in his interviews, I feel like drivers are probably cautioned or should have PR training not to say that until the thing is actually. But he was like, yeah, I've got that. So he was already thinking that he was going to be even worse than what he was. So yeah, maybe I think he was looking at that and just thinking, oh, it could have been the other way around, like him P1, Charles P3 at his home race in Ferrari. And
yeah, definitely.
I think he let that get away from him because he potentially could have. I think he maybe thought that, but then he also reflected it in how he was speaking in his interviews where he wasn't celebrating it. But then it just shows what a turnaround he's having, because if Lewis is unhappy with maybe, podium in a sprint and then podium at Silverstone, after the season that we had last year, that's actually consistency, and he wants the wins now. So, and it is possible because you can see that your teammates just done it in the same car. Yeah,
it's quite cool. I don't know how far behind they are in the constructors, but it's good that they're both scoring points. So that might change things a little bit. I think Mercedes is still going to run away with it, but it's nice that there's some other ones performing well. Yeah, I found this race quite interesting about Kimi on the radio because I could only hear what was broadcasted at the track, and Kimi to me sounded like a little kid that was like being spoiled and was complaining to his parents that he didn't get the toy he wanted. That's what it sounded like. But I saw a video explaining what was actually happening to his car, and it was part of his front wing was rubbing up against the front left tyre, which was causing it to struggle to turn. So he got lots of track limits and stuff. But yeah, so obviously he won the sprint. So he maximised the points he could get out of the sprint race from that half of the weekend. But then he didn't want to retire the car, and I think that's what the team thought they were going to have to do, and that's what they were telling him to come and box. He was like, no, I want to get a point. I'm going to get a point. Like, I just want to stay out. I want to get a point. So it was, yeah, like you really heard him arguing in defence of wanting a point, which is fair enough. It's just, I really think his inexperience and just sort of youth came out in his voice a lot. So I'm intrigued to see what happens following this race. The next day he was at Wimbledon dressed up in a nice suit looking like a grown-up. So, you know, it's kind of funny. But when you were listening to him, it was like, oh yeah, you are like really young. Yeah, so I don't actually know where he ended up finishing.
I think he was 16th actually.
Yeah.
Maybe in the end. But first of all, I was at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Also, same day as Kimi.
And Pierre. Pierre was there as well, I saw.
What?
They were both.
I didn't see him. So, yeah, I was kind of sad.
They would have been in a
to
box
see.
somewhere.
I know. And he was on center court anyway. Although I was on court 1 and there was an Italian tennis player that was playing and in the men's, and he got through.
Is that the Kabuli guy?
Yes. So
He's cool.
I felt like, I don't know why. Yeah, maybe I was like, maybe Kimi actually came and popped up to watch that one. That would have been a cool one for him
He
to
got
watch.
a photo with Yannick because Yannick's a huge F1 fan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's Italian. So, yeah that was
so very
cute.
sad not to have seen or bumped into Kimi or Pierre at the Wimbledon. It is huge, though. And I was on court 1. Very lucky with that. But I did see one of our favorite meme references, which is Angela from The Office. I think just last episode for Austria, you used that as your meme of the week. You know, the one where she pops up by Dwight's shoulder and it's sort of like, like, Max, what are you doing here? So it was just really cool to meet her and say hi, and she was really nice.
That's so cool.
That was the famous person that I saw. But on the Kimi radio messages, I agree. I had that down as my other notable thing from this race, is that you could just hear you just brought all his emotions. There's no censor. And I think we spoke about that previously with the Kimi versus George difference, with George just having that maturity and being very strategic about what he's saying on the radio or in public and all of that. And Kimi, you can say, especially when he's in the car and in the moment, I think he's pretty good about turning it around when he's in front of the media and all of that. But when he's in that car, he is still very unfiltered and young, and when he's upset, and all of that stuff about having to retire the car, but he wanted to stay out, and they were telling him you've got track limits, so he could have boxed anyway because he was going to get the 5 second, and that would have dropped him. But trying to hang on for the point, that was it was a little bit heartbreaking to see actually, because I really kind of just felt for him.
He was really pleading, wasn't he? Yeah,
exactly. He was pleading. So
it's the right mindset to have to get the points, obviously, because he is leading and he wants to hold the lead. And when Max won his 4th, that was only by a matter of 2 points, wasn't it? That was really close. Yeah. So that's obviously what he's thinking about. But it was also just kind of like, you just got all the points from the sprint. Like, save some for someone else. Like, you've got so many. You can chill for this one. But
I know.
Of course, they should still try. Yeah, but I thought that was interesting.
So that brings us on to meme of the week.
Nice. The one other meme reference I have that isn't actually officially a meme was that one of the VSCs was because an umbrella landed on the track, and it was a fluoro yellow one from the Lando stand. And I'd just like to think about that person who stopped an international motorsport race because they didn't hold on to their umbrella. How guilty would you feel? That is just millions of people that you've affected. Crazy to think about. Yeah.
I know. Or were they trying to strategically do that so that a virtual safety car came on and people could pit?
It could be a ploy.
Because
Yep.
Ocon was the only one that managed to like get in there, and it was like, I don't know, a 5-second virtual safety car.
Yeah, it was a really quick one. My meme of the week is about what you said, the safety car at the end, and it's from 2.5 Men, and it says Alan is the race director. I think I forgot to tell someone. And then Charlie says, if you forgot, then it wasn't important. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And it's just Jake outside in the rain saying that he's the safety car. So it was like they'd sort of finished the race and forgot to tell the safety car what to do. So I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, my one is just, I guess, an image really of like the podium in the end, which was a classic George Russell
Love it.
T-pose with Charles and Lewis. So yeah, that was mine. And then the other one that was really my second one, which is what I already said, but it was also classic George, which is does nothing and gets P2. But he was due a bit of luck, I think, because he's had some bad runs. So if anything, it kind of reversed and gave him the luck that he had lost on previous races.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were pretty good. Shall we look ahead to the next one, which is Spa, isn't it? Belgium? That's the next one. What are your thoughts going into that one? In a couple of weeks' time?
I think it's in like 2 weeks' time. I'm not sure. I feel like Ferrari's in a good groove. They obviously had that Austria kind of blip where it just did not go well for them. Despite qualifying well, the race just didn't pan out. I think they can hang on to this momentum. So I'm hoping that we're going to see it carry forward into Spa also. So yeah, I'm expecting to see Ferrari doing really well and maybe one Mercedes in the mix on the podium.
Nice. Yeah. I think I would actually like to see a back-to-back Charles win. He might just be in the groove, like you said, and he might just get another one straight away. I think it's such a cool track. I love watching this race. So I hope it's just an exciting one. I hope there's no crashes because it's a scary track. But yeah, I think a Charles win would be very nice. And I'd like George to get some more points. I don't know what Kimi will do in this one. It'll be interesting. I hope Max has a good time. I'd actually like Max to win. If it's not Charles, I'd like Max to win. Yeah, I want him back on the podium on the top step.
Exactly. I actually saw another meme where it said wins the season, and it was Kimi 5 times, George 2 times, Lewis and Charles 1 time each, and even Alonso for the Lego race 1. And then it was Max 0. So no wins for the season.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, let's see. I mean, he was on track again for podium before he crashed, so you never know.
Yeah. I'd like Max to do well. That's what I hope for going into Spa. Nice.
Okay. Well, we will see you at the next one.
See you at the next one.